Welcome to City and the Mind, a VR experience about the effects that living in an urban area and cities can have on your mind and body. But first, what is an urban area? Well, an urban area can be defined by the area's population density, that is, the number of individuals living within a selected area. Urban areas are categorised by their high population density, hence why cities are more often than not urban areas. In June 2017, Manila, capital city of the Philippines, had the highest population density with an enormous population of over 1.7 million people living in an area of under 200 miles squared. That's almost 4 times the population density of New Jersey and New York. Do you live in a city? It's not surprising if you do. In 2014, a striking 54% of the world's population were living in urban areas. In the UK alone, over 90% of people living within the UK were living in cities, a number predicted to increase further by the year 2020. With this many people living in urban areas, it's important to understand the effects this may have on people living there. It may not surprise you that living in a city can have some negative effects on both your body and mind, but what may surprise you is the severity of these effects. Take for instance a study conducted in 2010 by the Arkin Mental Health Institute in Amsterdam, in which population surveys of urban areas revealed that people living in cities had a 21% increased risk of anxiety disorders and 39% increase in disorders relating to mood, such as depression. Most shocking was that the number of schizophrenia incidences doubled for those born and brought up in large cities. Another study from 2010 by the University of Heidelberg in 2010, conducted by Professor Andreas Meyer-Lindenberg, could give us an insight into why those living in cities see such a prominent increase in mood and anxiety disorders. During the study, samples of 50 were taken from urban and rural areas. The volunteers were then asked to complete challenging arithmetic to induce stress and a sense of anxiety. During the task, overactivity was detected in the amygdala and cingulate cortex of those living in cities, far more so than control groups or those living in rural areas. The study suggests that cities may impede our ability to alleviate and process stress. During the study, Lindenberg found a link between those living in cities and increased neural activity within the amygdala and cingulate cortex. The amygdalae are 2 round groups of clustered neurons within the temporal lobes of the brain. In humans, these areas have been shown to perform key roles in decision-making, memory, and emotional responses, and so are linked to depression and anxiety. Similarly, the cingulate cortex is responsible for the control of emotions and environmental adversity. Meyer-Lindenberg speculates that this overactivity is what is causing the increased amount of disorders in urban populations, as it suggests that those within the urban areas are at a much heightened state of stress than those living in urban areas. Now that we understand just how many people are being affected by stress and disorders in urban areas, what is it about living in cities which can be causing such an effect? Lindenberg suggests that the cause of this brain activity could be down to such factors as noise, social fragmentation, and overcrowding. They say, there's prior evidence that if someone invades your personal space, comes too close to you, it's exactly the amygdala cingulate circuit that gets switched on, so it could be something as simple as density. It is also theorised that cities cause us to be more alert, and so people living in cities develop repetitive stress from an active fight or flight response. A study in 2015 found a link between road traffic noise and cardiovascular diseases and mortality in London, suggesting that loud noises can seriously affect human health. This is no surprise because loud, unpredictable noises such as sirens and car horns found commonly within cities will make people more alert, and so their heartbeat will heighten, putting more stress on muscles within the heart. One of the more obvious threats of inner city living is population. A 2013 study suggests that the pollution in the air of highly populated areas is having devastating, often long-term effects on the human body. The study found that particulate matter and nitrogen monoxide have been linked to conditions including coronary artery disease and lung cancer. A similar study from the same year also found a link between pollutants and mortality. Similarly, in 2010, James Gurn found a connection between elderly and children living in urban areas and cases of asthma and allergies. One explanation for this is the exposure to such pollutants when immune systems are underdeveloped or vulnerable. The risks posed by these pollutants are even more threatening to health, as cities have more cars on the roads than outside of the cities. The risks posed by these pollutants are even more threatening to health, as cities have more cars on the roads than outside of cities. However, efforts are being made to reduce pollution in cities. Take for instance the Trees for Cities charity, whose goal is to help introduce more trees into urban areas, not only to combat pollutants, but also for the trees' psychological benefits. Since 1993 they have planted almost 800,000 trees throughout urban areas including schools, parks and housing estates, and now the charity aims to have planted 1 million trees by the year 2020. In conclusion, it seems cities have a detrimental effect not only to our bodies, but also our mind. However, there are ways to combat this through tree planting and urban planning which take into consideration these risks. Although, with population on the constant rise, will it be enough?